Hello and welcome to another Kabbalah lesson. Today we're going to have the last lesson for the first semester, and next week we're going to be moving straight on to our second semester. So today is going to be the ending of the first semester, but beginning for our next term is next week. So we're not going to stop, we're not going to have a break in between, we're just going to carry on studying. And as usual, if you have any questions, you can send them through. In any case, when we move on to the second semester, you can still ask questions. There's no reason you can't. And if you also like, you can join us live interactively. And if you wish to do that, you can also do so by getting in touch with us. And then we'll put you on this virtual platform where we can actually see each other. Now, the second semester, I'll talk about that later on. And before we move on to the second semester, one last lesson that we have to go over is actually what is the benefit of studying Kabbalah. So up to this lesson, we studied quite a bit. We had also a question and answer session as well. And we discovered many new things that the wisdom of Kabbalah was explaining to us about life, about existence, and about our place in life. So what to do with our place in life? And how can the wisdom of Kabbalah help us attain the purpose of life? Because we learned in previous lessons that life has a purpose, and at the end of the day, we have to go there. We can't just stop our growth. We can't come to the age of, 20, 25, whatever, and say, you know what, this year is being great, I'm going to stop getting old and just keep living like this. We just can't. We have to move forward. We have to grow older and keep going through the events of life as we develop and mature and grow. And so is the case with our spiritual growth, as in everyone, the whole of humanity. This is why we're constantly going through a lot of dramas in life with a lot of things: personal problems, national problems, societal problems, and in fact, the global community. We always have problems, don't we? We have conflicts, we have problems, misunderstandings, all kinds of situations, and we just can't seem to balance our personal life, our family life, social life, national life and international life. We can't seem to solve really anything, and we're always going from one problem to another, and it just feels like there's no stopping it. So today we're going to discuss how the wisdom of Kabbalah can help us overcome all kinds of problems in life. So up to now, we know human nature. We know where our freedom of choice is. We now know from the wisdom of Kabbalah how to use an environment to develop spiritually. And we also learned how to use the method of the wisdom of Kabbalah so we can go through changes, and how we can all bring that together. So let's take a look at what the real benefits are. And as usual, you can ask questions here and I'll be able to see them. So any questions that you have, feel free to put them here. In fact, I'll let you guys know here that they can put the questions right here. Okay, there we go. And if you have any questions, that said, I'm more than happy to answer them at any time. Now, the advantages of studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. Well, for one thing, from the first lesson, you would have learned that any desire that we have, when it is fulfilled or attained, the desire and the pleasure, they cancel each other out. So you might say, well, that's a bit depressing. How's knowing that really going to help me in life? Well, for one thing, if you understand that the desire and the pleasure, they short circuit each other and they cancel each other out, and then you're always left with chasing a new desire to get some new fulfillment, then you begin to understand that running after small things is not going to give you any pleasure at all. So if you're going to go after something big, you might as well do that, because if you go after something really great, you'll at least have a lasting pleasure because the desire is really big. So that already gives you something to think about in your life. But beyond that, what is really more and more interesting about the wisdom of Kabbalah is simply this attainment of spirituality gives a person the existence, the sensation of existing beyond the body while actually living here in the body. Now that already within itself is a whole different dimension, because in this world we can't really step out of our bodies. We can't really feel something beyond our five senses. However, the wisdom of Kabbalah says, well, wait a minute. What we can do, actually, is to develop something called a sixth sense, a soul. And that soul can actually perceive a reality which is beyond the five senses. So that's already a bonus. Why is that a bonus? Well, simply because if I come to a point of existence where I can actually perceive myself as a living entity beyond the boundaries of my physical, corporeal limitations, then I've actually attained eternality. And that is being deathless, okay? Being beyond the body. So even if the body dies off, which it will eventually, I won't be feeling anything negative about it. In fact, I might even look forward to it. Because physical corporeal death is actually nothing but changing a shirt. Just like this one gets old, I throw it in the trash and put a new shirt on. Well, when you're in a perception of reality where you're living in a perception beyond corporeality, then really your body's transition from liveliness to death is no different than getting a haircut, really. No different at all. Because the hair belongs to the vegetative level, just like our nails. So when we cut them, we don't really feel any pain, do we? We're not really bothered, unless you have a really bad haircut and have a psychological drama about it. Other than that, though, you can cut your hair and it doesn't hurt. You can cut your nails, they don't hurt. Because they belong to a lesser degree, the vegetative level. Whereas our body, this meat, is an animate level. It's higher than the vegetative. So when you pinch yourself or you cut yourself, you feel the pain. Now imagine living beyond the animate level. What happens to the animate level begins to be really trivial, just like a bad haircut or a bad hair day. Other than that, though, nothing more. So already living in a different mode, a different state of consciousness, is a great positive plus. Not only do you get to feel eternal life, you actually get a lot of pleasure from being in eternal life. For one thing, you don't have any doubts about what's going to happen. You don't have doubts about the future that's in front of you. You understand life. You understand why life needs to be like this. So you're getting rid of all the confusion that's in your life. And furthermore, what's really beyond that is in spirituality there is constant pleasure. In this life, like I said, pleasure and desire, they cancel each other out, but in spirituality they don't. In spirituality we begin to live a life quite different than what is our corporeal body demands of us. And this new state of existence has pleasure which doesn't really end. That might sound a little weird or a little freaky, but at the end of the day, it's actually quite logical. Because if you're now existing at a higher level of consciousness where you're beyond your corporeal desires, you don't really have the urge to run around because you don't feel the need that you're lacking something. You don't feel like you lack things. Quite to the contrary, you feel like you have everything, and your happiness is bestowing all that you have, which is quite opposite to our corporeal existence. So already living in that state is a sensation with a never-ending joy and happiness. So that sounds quite good. And in fact, it is quite good. And hopefully we'll all get there soon. as we develop in the wisdom of Kabbalah and spirituality, you'll begin to see these inner changes. And when we go through a lot of inner changes, initially, okay, it's not all fun and games initially. What happens is, like with all things, we have to go through this effort phase, this preparation phase, or you call it, sometimes Kabbalists call it the preparation phase. And what we really need to do in that time period, when we're really getting ourselves ready to feel that new level of existence, is a time period where we have to give a lot of effort. And this effort actually pays off with attaining this high level of consciousness. So that critical moment, moment is the initiation of starting to study wisdom of Kabbalah seriously as a serious student, and taking the reins on and just putting in the effort and investing in your spirituality. And once we go over that phase, it just becomes a bit more understood, a bit more clear, and things become a bit more obvious and certain. But with all things, until we get there, yes, it is full of ups and downs, but just like our life is, our corporeal life is always full of ups and downs, and it has to be, because if it wasn't, we'd never understand the states we were going through. Imagine being in a state of elevation all the time. People would think we're crazy. In fact, we would be crazy. A person always needs these swings in feeling, understanding, in moods, and all sorts of things. So we can have a variety of sensations, which we can then bring an understanding to it, so we can reconcile our feelings with our mind and understand our lives. Well, in spirituality, it's the same thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to invest, we're going to study, and we're going to start to open up spirituality to us. And as we open up spirituality, we'll go through the same kind of ups and downs in spirituality as well, until we come to the end of our attainment, where everything will be crystal clear, just like I described a few moments ago. So let's read a little bit to touch on that point. We're going to read from a book called Kabbalah for the Student. It's on page 120, and the article is called Introduction to the Book of Zohar. We're going to read item 20. Our body, given to us in its present corrupted form, does not blemish our essence, since it and all its possessions are to be completely eradicated, along with the whole system of impurity, which is their source. And all that is bound to be burned is deemed burned, considered as though it never existed. But the soul that is dressed in that body, which is what we're going to attain, whose essence is also purely a desire, but a desire to bestow, which extends to us from the system of the four worlds of the holy Abiyah, exists forever. This is because this form of a desire to bestow is in equivalence of form with the life of lives, and is not in any way exchangeable. So what we have to do is, in its essence, come to equivalence of form with the Creator. Life of lives is called the Creator. It's another word for the word Creator. And the Creator, obviously what happens is, once we're in equivalence of form, we can then be beyond the boundaries of this corporeal limitation. And as it says here, our corporeal life is just nothing but corruption. And you can see that in real life as well. If you look at life, mostly it's corrupted. Our relationships, the economy, the business, politics, it's all just one big corruption. And so Kabbalah said, well, listen, it has to be this way, because if we didn't go through this corrupted state, we'd never really wonder about the meaning of life. So we go through all kinds of turmoils and problems in life, so that we can actually come to attain something even greater. Also in our corporeal existence, if you look at our history, our revolutions are always from periods of really bad suffering. Humanity is always kind of reformatted itself and elevated itself to the next level, to the next degree, after a lot of suffering, which pushed humanity to get out of that state. So all our revolutions, all our historical points of development, let's say all the way from Babylon, where they came up with the agriculture and went beyond the seasons by bringing the agricultural revolution, to all kinds of in between cultural revolutions, all kinds of societal revolutions, the industrial revolutions and so forth that we've done. It's all been because we were just suffering. And through the suffering, humanity always came up with something new. And we're also at that phase now in humanity, that we're at a time period where we just don't know what to do with ourselves anymore. People are talking about another world war. The economy, obviously capitalism has come to an end. And we need to really understand that that's it. The Undertaker is digging the grave for capitalism, and that game is over. So humanity is in a confused state, and they don't know which way to go. And this confusion, just like in our historical development, is going to bring us to a point of change. So already as a Kabbalah student, to be able to see that, to have that vision, to see where we're going, why we need to go through these developments, makes the journey very, very smooth rather than problematic. Because any problem that you encounter in life can be overcome if you have an understanding about it. But if you don't understand why it's happening, you're just going to be constantly confused. So studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, in order to elevate ourselves beyond our current understanding, current perception, to a higher level, is already solving all the problems that we have. Okay? Right then. Now, we talked about our human nature in previous lessons, and we said, listen, if we're a desire by nature to receive pleasure, then what kind of a choice could I possibly have in life? So we talked about free choice, and we understood that a person in this current nature has no free choice. What free choice do we have? If we're a desire to receive pleasure, and my mind is always working in a way that minimum investment to get what I want. That's the formula how my mind works. Okay? Minimum effort, maximum pleasure. That's the software of the intellect. And our essence is a desire to receive pleasure. So how's that going to work? Whatever I want, I'm just going to try to get as fast as I can. So where are my desires coming from? Well, they're coming mostly from the environment, because I see, I want. So I'm running after a lot of things in life which I don't even want, but society is imposing on me so that I can want and I will want. And that's how I run after a lot of things. Our life is going by even without noticing that we're running after things that we never even wanted, that we never even really had any even thought about it. So what kind of a free choice did we ever have? We had no free choice. Humanity doesn't have a free choice. If I desire to receive nature, this is how it works. What kind of a free choice can I have? What, choosing what to eat from a menu? Is that what I'm going to call free choice? That's not going to be free choice. Animals do the same thing. You put 3 or 4 different kinds of food in front of a dog or a cat. They sniff everyone just to eat whatever they want, whatever they fancy at the moment. Same with us. So our animate life is already a closed loop. There's no getting out of it. It's a fixed, sold out game. And nobody has any free choice. Everybody is working towards getting maximum fulfillment for the desires that are revealed inside of them. And that's it. But by studying Kabbalah, we can actually determine where free choice is, because we can determine where we want to now develop and grow. If we're in corporeality, we don't have a choice. we say, this is life, this is how it is, and that's it. You grow old, if you're lucky, and you die. But with the wisdom of Kabbalah, we have a choice. We have a choice to develop differently. And that is free choice. And that's what we discovered. So to be actually in that area where I can kind of go back and forth between corporeality and spirituality, to depict and to decipher the whole of reality, to get a feel of where I can be free, is already a great bonus. Because you're not dealing with childish things anymore, like the rest of humanity. Believe me, if you finished this course already, you're probably a few reincarnations out of everyone that hasn't. Simply because you begin to understand your own nature and how it works and what you can do about it. Because a person who's really coming to the wisdom of Kabbalah, like we discussed in previous lessons, a person who is persistent in discovering the purpose of his or her life. And this is what this wisdom gives us. So by understanding our nature, the laws of general nature, and how I am being operated on in nature, understanding that already allows me to maneuver, which other people cannot do. Isn't that already a big bonus? And as the Kabbalists say in the Zohar, in item 129, open for me an opening like the tip of a needle, and I will open the high gates for you. So just a little bit of spirituality, a little bit of opening this new perception is already enough for us to discover a whole new way of existence. So free choice, great. Coming to the purpose of life and being beyond the boundaries of our physicality and corporeality, equally great. Okay, so what else do we have? Well, family relationships. Family relationships, why is that? Why is that such a topic? Why is that a topic in spirituality? Well, for one thing, Kabbalists, being very pragmatic, they understand the laws of nature, and they understand our nature, and how we need to match our nature to the general laws of nature. And family relationships, also raising children as part of that, is very, very important, because they include a system which we are actually inside of. And in fact, you'll be amazed to know that understanding spirituality, can be much faster if you have a family and kids and so on. Now, in the 21st century, a lot of people get divorced. Okay, maybe half the population, maybe even more, 60% could be. In some places, that's how it is. A lot of people cannot really manage a relationship. And a lot of people in the 21st century also, they don't really want a long-term relationship. They don't want a relationship at all. In many places around the world, people just prefer to be single and alone. Okay? And those who do set up a family often have a lot of problems in the family. How to get along, what to do, how to be a family, how to grow as a family. All these things are a big question mark. And in society, we don't really get taught these things. I mean, we go to school, they give us all kinds of knowledge, but we don't really get educated on how to be a human being. We don't really understand what it means to be a family. We don't really understand what it means to have children and to raise them. We don't even know how to understand our children. Why? Because we don't understand human nature and we don't understand the laws of nature. So how can we understand our spouse or our children? We can't. And just so that you know, knowing that we can't understand each other is already a great thing, okay? Because it's like two opposite worlds, a man and a woman, right? It's like a plus and a minus, like two completely opposite things. So how's that beneficial if we know that we can't understand each other? Well, for one thing, you can stop fighting, because you just won't be able to understand each other anyway. So just get over it, relax, and cover all your problems with extra understanding, patience, and love. Because no matter who you marry, at the end of the day, as long as they're from, well, the opposite sex, okay, they're different. A man and a woman is different. So we need to understand how the nature of our spouse works. What the nature of a woman is, what the nature of a man is. And if I know what the nature of a woman is, then I can at least have some understanding why she's behaving in that way. And if she understands how the nature of man works, how the nature of men work really, then she understands, you know, plus or minus, how I go through things, how I go through life, and how I look at life. Then we already have some kind of a local or common, let's say, a common domain where we can actually figure things out. Other than that, though, human ego has grown so much that the happy marriages of our, I don't know, fathers or grandparents or whatever it's like a fairy tale. It just doesn't really feel like it exists, simply because we're not there. And imagine how our children are going to be. They're going to be more egoists than we are. And if we don't educate them about human egoism, human nature, and the bestowing nature of the overall creation, how are they really going to get on with life? They're going to need really extra social skills. And social skills can only happen if they're educated in that way. And what does Kabbalah teach us? Well, Kabbalah teaches us how to integrate ourselves into reality and understand reality. So all my relationships, not just family and raising kids, actually even our relationships at work, our co-workers, our colleagues, any person we meet on the street is actually right in front of us to understand, really. We can understand whatever is going on between us if we understand the laws of nature. By studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, you actually get a completely different perspective on everybody that you're in touch with. And you begin to understand how to raise your children. Rather than grabbing them and taking them from one activity to the other in order to fill up their spare time with all kinds of nonsense that they really didn't ask for either, but you kept pushing it on them so that they'll develop better because you think they're going to develop much better by doing all these curriculum activities. We're not really giving our kids the chance to discover what they really want, because we're constantly grabbing them and taking them from one activity to another. The child doesn't really have the ability to sit down and think about what would I like to do. All right? So us parents are not understanding our children. We don't understand how to give them space. We don't know how to give them an area where they can figure things out on their own and actually have a development which comes from their inner qualities rather than the things that we push onto them. In order to work with our children properly, to raise them, we need to understand their nature as well, how they're growing. We need to have the right glasses on so we can observe them properly, correctly, and understand that their nature and their traits are different to us, and how these traits surface, we need to facilitate for them so that they can grow according to the things that are emotionally revealed in them, rather than pushing them and forcing them into doing all kinds of activities. So we need to also understand all kinds of things about growing children and so forth that we're not taught in school, but the wisdom of Kabbalah actually teaches us. So dealing with the difficulties of everyday life, that is a big bonus, because every day we have dramas, problems. At work, family, kids, friends, health, traffic, any problem. All kinds of things that actually disturb us in life. From the economy to to, I don't know, social events, conflicts, all kinds of things. The wisdom of Kabbalah allows us to overcome problems, and it allows us to overcome problems with an understanding. We're not just, the problem is there, it exists, but with the wisdom of Kabbalah, you attain a different approach to it. Your perspective is different, and that's already something really good, because you can then kind of know what to do with it. Sometimes we have a lot of problems, we don't know what to do, how to deal with them, and sometimes problems can be overwhelming, and a lot of people feel they're burdened by many things, and this is why they go into depression, they lose sight of life, all kinds of drug, alcohol, violence, all kinds of abuses really come up because we just can't bring a solution to our problems or to the lack of fulfillment that we're feeling in life, which is also a problem. Lack of fulfillment, lack of pleasure, it's a big problem in life. And this is why a lot of people, like I said, lose sight of life and just go into all kinds of addictions, violence, or all kinds of other things in order to get some fulfillment. So understanding how problems occur, why they occur, how I need to tackle them, and how I can move forward with them, how I can actually resolve them, is already also one of the biggest bonuses of studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. Studying the wisdom of Kabbalah might sound like something really, really amazing, which I'll tell you from experience, it is amazing, that's for sure. Okay, studying the wisdom of Kabbalah is amazing. And the way I describe it, it has a lot of bonuses to it. But if you really think about it, the wisdom of Kabbalah is really explaining to us what life is. And all our problems with everything in life is because we don't know what life is, and we don't know what life is about. So already learning that allows you to solve everything. So although I'm kind of, numbering them here, solve your family problems, your kids, any problem at work, whatever, health, it sounds like I'm making a list, but actually there's only one big problem. The question of, what are we living for? And why are the things that are happening? We don't know. And because the wisdom of Kabbalah answers the purpose of life, then you begin to understand that your life is directed with everything in it towards that purpose. And then you make sense of problems. And then you really use the wisdom of Kabbalah to overcome any situation. So that is already, it's a comprehensive science that covers everything. It really does cover everything in life. So although it's like a list here, sometimes listing things out makes it a bit more obvious to students. But from experience, studying the wisdom of Kabbalah for so many years, you begin to really just look at life as one thing rather than a bunch of things. It's me in life, and it's like one complete picture rather than dealing with several things all over the place. So on the one hand, it's easier to understand, but on the other hand, I felt like I need to kind of bring everything into one point, because the wisdom of Kabbalah really is covering everything that is in our lives. Overcoming fears and anxieties. Now, most of the time we have fears and anxiety problems because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We spend a lot of time worrying about the future. We spend a lot of time thinking about the past and what we could have done differently, but we never really focus on now. What is now? What am I living now? And if you look at our anxiety, our fears, they're mostly connected to the future. What's going to happen to me tomorrow? What's going to happen to me when I'm retired? What's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to me in the future? Somewhere there, okay? Which is a big time waster. Now, I'm not saying don't plan your future. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the constant thought of worrying, or the constant thought of thinking about how things, are going to happen in the future, and how I need to cover myself for the future, is already great an anxiety. It's a huge anxiety. So the wisdom of Kabbalah allows us to also understand how we can overcome this anxiety by understanding how life works. Simple. If I understand how life works, I don't have an anxiety. I don't have a drama. Well, I do have dramas, but they're not something that are beyond what I can handle. Because like I said before, the greatest thing that we're missing is the understanding that comes along with the problem. So I have a problem, I need to reconcile it with some understanding as to why it's happening, so I can really flow with it and solve it and grow with it. Because all the problems that we're getting is just for one thing: to grow ourselves to our next level of development, to our next level of existence. Just like in the historical examples, I said all the revolutions that we did, economically, politically, socially, culturally, education-wise, everything that we did in the past, all the revolutions, all the changes, was only done because we needed to now go to the next level. And humanity is right there at this century, that we need to start changing. And this change can only happen if we bring some kind of meaning to our lives by understanding the purpose of life and how to integrate ourselves into the flow of life, so we can get to the purpose of life quickly and happily, without having to go through a lot of pain and suffering like all our ancestors did. Let's read a little bit more, and let's see what the Kabbalists are saying as well. Now I'm going to read a little passage from an article called Mutual Responsibility, Mutual Guarantee. And this is also from the book Kabbalah for the Students. And everybody is responsible for one another. This is to speak of the mutual responsibility when everyone became responsible for one another. Because spirituality was not attained before each and every one from the people was asked if they agreed to take upon themselves the precept of loving others in the full measure expressed in the words, "Love thy friend as thyself." This means that each and every person would take it upon themselves to care and work for each member of the nation, and to satisfy all their everyday needs, no less than the measure imprinted in themselves to care for others like they care for themselves. With this collective responsibility, each member of the nation was liberated from worrying about the needs of his own body, and could keep the precept, "Love thy friend as thyself," in the fullest measure, and give all that he had to any needy person, since he no longer cared for the existence of his own body, as he knew for certain that he was surrounded by 600,000 loyal lovers who were standing ready to provide for him. Now, at the end of the article, it says 600,000 friends that are surrounding him and so forth. That's just a number, but let's take the concept from here, right? Why do we have fears and anxiety? Because we don't understand if somebody's going to stab us in the back. We don't know what our boss is going to do tomorrow. Is he going to fire me? Is he going to promote me? I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow with anything. There could be a war. There could be God forbid, an accident, a natural disaster. Think about that. A tsunami, an earthquake somewhere. a hurricane. We don't know what's really going to happen the next moment. Not with our health, not with the ecology, economy, nations, nothing. Okay? So Kabbalists are saying, well, listen, because we don't know all these things, and anything can happen just like that. And even now, with all the weapons that we have and the economic collapse that we're going towards, can just spark anything. Our greatest anxiety can only be overcome if we, as a society, as a group of people, come to the understanding that what we need to do in order to have a stress-free life is to care for one another. Instead of caring just for myself, I start to care for other people, even small, slowly, let's say, right? By little amounts. I don't have to dive into that big ocean on day one, but slowly I begin to think about how I can be a better person. And the best way to study how to be better is in a society of friends who are like-minded. This is why in Kabbalah we always have a group of friends who understand that they have a purpose in life. They want to get to that purpose in life. And also to get there, you need like-minded people, because not everybody wants to study the wisdom of Kabbalah. Not everybody wants to be a Kabbalist, that's for sure. So a person who wants to be a Kabbalist, who wants to attain a new perception, build a new reality which he or she can exist in, can only do it in that environment. And this is why the environment is so important, which we studied in the previous lessons. Environment is where we build ourselves. And in order for us to get rid of all this anxiety, we have to be in an environment which is caring, understanding. We have to at least try to build that. And also, we need to have the right approach to that. Because a lot of people may come together to care for each other, but it's not really going to help if it's not aimed towards the purpose of life. And also, it's not really going to work out if we don't have the right approach in the group towards the purpose of life. So there are a few things we need to get right here as we study. And that is the individual plus the group, the study, the environment must be directed properly. So having achieved that, we can also get rid of all our reality or all our problems in anxiety and all kinds of things. Another great advantage of studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, it makes you really realistic. You begin to stop believing in all kinds of, nonsenses. Your life becomes more tangible, more understood, more realistic. You begin to feel like you're living, actually. A lot of people right now in the world, if you think about it, if you look at it, with the problems that we're going through societally, right? We want to disconnect from reality. This is why we have such a big drug problem. All kinds of drug abuses, depression. People just want to disconnect from reality. And that doesn't really help us at all. Because what can really disconnection do for me? Nothing. It's like putting yourself to sleep and hoping things will change when you wake up. But you know it's not going to. So what the wisdom of Kabbalah allows us to do is actually have a solid, down-to-earth approach to life. And that's also a great advantage. Like with all the things we talked about, they're all great advantages. And this is also a great advantage simply because it's just life becomes meaningful, manageable, realistic. And I stop, wasting time with all kinds of nonsenses. And there's a nice little sentence from Leviticus 19:26. Neither shall you practice divination or soothsaying, Thou shalt not suffer a sorceress to live. This is a bit of an old text. It might not make sense, but actually what it's saying is very straightforward. You just stop chasing all kinds of mystical, irrelevant, illogical, just blurry, cloudy, I don't know, imaginary things, and you become a solid, down-to-earth person who understands life and your place in life. And that saves a lot of time. I've seen a lot of people chasing a lot of mystical stuff in life. I lived on 4 continents. I have not seen one mystical thing. None. Life is very straightforward. It works with concrete laws called the laws of nature, and there's nothing mystical about it. People call things mystical because they don't understand life. They don't understand certain phenomena, so all of a sudden it becomes something mystical. But there's nothing mystical about life. They're just laws of nature, and if you haven't discovered them, it turns out to be for you mystical. But if you're a Kabbalah student, it just becomes something concrete. You understand that, hey, this is how things work. That's it. So you become more realistic. The pleasures you chase in life become realistic. Imagine how many friends you have still running after the same things they were running after when they were, I don't know, at college or at high school or whatever. You'd think they'd change a little bit by now, but they don't. Why is that? Because they're still in the same desire to receive. So they're constantly running after that pleasure that they think that they're going to get. Well, they'll get it, but it's not going to last because, like we said, pleasure, desire, they cancel each other out. So you feel double the emptiness because you wasted a lot of time, energy, effort, money trying to get what you wanted, and the pleasure didn't last long. What can you do? So the wisdom of Kabbalah allows you to make a better calculation about what you should be going after and what you shouldn't be going after. So it actually makes you mature. Because what is maturity at the end of the day? Maturity is understanding life, your place in life, and what you're going to do with it in a focused way, rather than being thrown away like a leaf in a wind from one place to another. That's how the currents of life take millions of people from one place to another, and the only place everybody's going to is a graveyard. In order to change that, you need a new perspective, a new approach, and this is what the wisdom of Kabbalah really gives us. That new mature understanding and approach to life. It also allows us, we discussed this before in the perception of reality, it allows us to change how we perceive reality. A person perceives reality inside himself or herself. But when we look at life, we always think there's something outside of us. Like somebody's doing something out there. So by studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, I can actually invert the whole of reality into my existence. And this is already bringing a completely different approach. Why? Because I'm beginning to stop blaming life and everybody else in life. And I'm beginning to turn the table around and start looking at the whole of life in a way which I am now living it in my sensations, and everything is like a part of me. So how does that help us? Well, the perception of reality, by changing the way we look at reality, we're actually giving ourselves the opportunity to change ourselves. Because in life, what do normal people do outside? They blame each other for things that happen to them. Right? So something happened to me, I don't know, I blame my boss, my friend, I don't know, somebody in traffic jam, I don't know, some president or somebody else, okay? I'm always blaming others for things that are giving me grief or giving me a negative experience. However, in the wisdom of Kabbalah, what you can do is to invert everything you see inside of you, and then you don't have anybody to blame, but you have everybody to work with for your spiritual development. And this actually also takes a lot of anxiety out of the game, because you begin to get control over your life. You begin to work with life. You begin to work with the events, the affairs, the currents of life. And this will take you to a whole different approach to life. So another one big advantage there. What else? Valuing one's contribution to society. Well, after you're working on changing your perception of reality, what you begin to do is you begin to understand now how to work correctly in society, how you can actually make a positive change. Now, a lot of people think they do good things in life, and we all know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So every time somebody tries to do something good, nothing really good comes out of it. Most of the time something really bad comes out of it. By changing the way we look at life through our nature, laws of nature, everything that we learn in the wisdom of Kabbalah, we actually begin to understand how to contribute to the world to make it a better place, rather than running around and doing things that are never going to change the world or make it better. Thousands of people around the world try to do good things for humanity. It never works, and it will not work. Write that down somewhere. You're gonna hold it against me in the future if I'm wrong, but I'm not. By studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, you can actually begin to understand what is good and what is not good. And in the outside world, people who think they're doing good according to what they think is good, because that thought is fulfilling the desire they have right now. And it's very animalistic. It will not change the world and make it a better place. What makes the world a better place is to actually influence it at a point where you can make a shift towards a progression of humanity, not a progression of environment or animate level, or I don't know, some kind of lower level of existence. The place to make a positive change is at the human level. It is not at the animate level, it's not the vegetative level or the still level. And humanity is constantly trying to fix the world at the animate level. Save the animals, save the planet, save the forest, save everything. You can't run after all these things. You'll never manage to. Change starts if humanity changes, and our change must be directed towards the purpose of life, not towards what I feel like is going to be better. Because life is based on balance. And the only unbalanced part of nature is the human. So we as humans, as we study wisdom of Kabbalah, begin to understand that contribution to society is actually bringing the human level of society to a balance. And that's how we can contribute to society. Another thing is global consciousness. Now, a lot of people don't understand that we're all connected in the world. Everybody. From, I don't know, from Tokyo to London, from Sydney to New York, no matter where you are, from here to Timbuktu, I don't know. Everybody in humanity is connected. Imagine a world where, like John Lennon said, that we have no borders. We're just one planet with a lot of people living in it. That's actually the truth. That is the truth. We're all living under the same sky. And in nature's eyes, there are no borders. There are no countries. There are no borders. There's just humanity, and that's it. Humanity, the animate level, vegetative level, and still level. That's all. So by studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, we begin to understand that everything and everyone is a crucial part of reality. So we begin to understand that everything is connected, and it doesn't matter if somebody's living in Africa or Asia or, I don't know, Europe or North South America or even the South North Pole. It doesn't matter where we live. We're inside this nature, and we're all connected within it. And to be able to understand that allows us to take everything into consideration. Not just where I live, but everything and everyone into consideration. And that is already a whole new perspective, because imagine how you're growing. Imagine a child. A child is close to the family. He or she, as a little baby, only knows mum and dad. As the child grows up, it begins to know that they have grandparents, maybe siblings, the neighbors, they go to school, they have other friends, they have the town, the city, their country. And then as we grow up, we understand there's a whole big world around us. Well, the wisdom of Kabbalah allows us to understand what to do with this whole reality. Okay, so there are a bunch of countries, hundreds of countries. But it allows also for me to understand that, listen, if there's something bad happening in one country, I can be sure that it's going to affect me negatively as well. Now, currently, we don't think that way. We don't think that a civil war in a country is going to impact our country, especially if we're far. But in the past few years, we understood that that's not true. Because if a country has conflict, all those refugees are going to end up in other countries. And they're going to be disrupting and unbalancing the society even more because of the cultural differences, because if their opinions and views are different. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to mix with people, but there's a way to mix and there's a way not to mix. So we all need to understand that if a country is going through a bad state, it's a bad state for everyone in humanity. And this is an understanding we need to get to. And the good of one person is actually the good for everyone. That's a state we should get to. So looking at life from this new perspective of a global society, a global community, a global reality is already really enlarging your scope, your understanding of reality. It's like really getting out of your box, because before we had a limited vision, a limited view of reality, and now all of a sudden we can take everyone into that picture and start to understand how to work with everything in nature. So this global consciousness allows me to bring solutions at a global level. And I can even start by making contribution by myself, because the smallest effort that I make is already contributing to bettering everything else in reality. But like we said, doing good needs to be understood. We need to understand what good is and what bad is, and we studied that in the previous lessons. So look into that if you're not sure. Everything is directed in life towards a purpose. and we must match ourselves to that purpose. And that's what really doing good is, so that the whole of humanity can come to that purpose. Now then, having said all that, sounds like a big list, and it sounds like it covers everything, which in fact it really does. But I think the only thing, if you want to take one sentence, one little short paragraph from this lesson, is that the wisdom of Kabbalah really allows you to understand your place, the world, how the world works, how you with your nature are operated, and how everything comes together. By actually understanding that, you solve all the problems, personal problems, family problems, societal, national, international, you name it, everything. And I think this is the great advantage of this wisdom, because this is the only wisdom we're going to be needing as humanity goes forward over the next few years, as we begin to understand that the economy we built is failing, that our societal structure that we built is failing. In fact, everything we did is failing, because we did everything to be happier in life, and we're discovering that we're more and more miserable in life. So just to study this wisdom, to overcome these things and to understand the reason, the causes for these things, is already something really great, and a big relief actually, in an age where we're coming to a point where the politicians, the elites, the people who seemingly run the planet have come to a situation where they can't solve anything. For us to see that is good, because it'll prompt us to change. However, the proper change has to start with humanity's change. Not trying to change other people, not trying to change the world or the environment, but trying to change ourselves as society by coming to this understanding of what our nature demands from us and what life's purpose demands from us, and how to reconcile these two things. And that's the only time where we're going to have a peace of mind. Nothing else in life that we do will bring us contentment or ongoing joy or happiness. So hopefully this lesson really summed up a lot of things for you as to why we study the wisdom of Kabbalah, why it's beneficial for everything. Even if we don't really want spirituality, just learning this wisdom is really an eye-opener for corporeal events as well, as to why everything happens to me the way it happens, and why life is the way it is. So just to understand that even at an intellectual level, without even changing your perception of reality, I think is a great bonus which we could all benefit from. And okay, hopefully there we go. Hopefully you'll stay on with us. We don't have any questions. I was just checking if we had any questions, but we don't. Hopefully you'll stay on with us. Now next Tuesday, let's talk about that. Now that we're at the end of this lesson, next Tuesday we're going to start our second semester. And our second semester, we're going to start dealing with how the world works. We're going to look at the world in a way that's a bit more scientific. And we're going to look at it from a structural aspect. So we're going to look at how the reality was built. And although it's going to sound like physics, and it might be a little boring for some of you, I'm going to try and mix it with social content as well, things that really matter to humanity as well, to us, our lives as well. Because at the end of the day, why do we want to study wisdom of Kabbalah? To better our lives, to make our lives better, to bring better understanding, to have a better grasp on everything, to have a better handle on all our situations in life. So understanding the structural design of creation from a spiritual perspective is important is in the wisdom of Kabbalah, because at the end of the day we're going to have to integrate ourselves in there. This is what's called, matching myself to the laws of nature. But like I said, we'll also look at some social topics in every lesson as well, so we can have a bit of theory that's right now beyond our perception, so we can take a look at structural events that are not in our perception right now, but we begin to depict them somehow through the text of the Kabbalists, and a look at our social life as well within the system, so we can walk on two legs. A bit of understanding, and a bit of understanding of our current situation, and also looking forward to building that spiritual reality through the texts of Kabbalists. All right, so hopefully this lesson did something. Hopefully it added a few things for you. Hopefully you'll stay on with us, and you'll join us next week as well as we move forward to the second semester. Until then, I wish you all a great week. Have a good day. Take care of yourselves. All the best. Bye-bye.